This is Mitch, and welcome to the 1000houses.com podcast. I'm here with Todd Toback. This guy's a legend, man. He's been around for about 19 years. He's done a little bit of everything. The number one training course in America. I mean, he's trained a lot of people. And the reason why he's so good at it is he's passionate about it. He really cares about where you end up for the amount of money that you spend and wants to make sure that you get where you're going. If you don't, it's your fault, because what this man does works. I'm living proof. I know it works. Hundreds of people out there, thousands of people have dealt with him directly and know it works. So with no further ado, Todd Toback, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Happy to be here and ready to rock and roll. And if you're listening to this and you want to do more deals, bigger deals, you want to make some money in real estate, you are speaking my language. So let's get ready to rock, Mitch.
Yeah, and as a side point, if you're already doing a lot, but you need to start learning how to make that business work for you instead of you work for the business and clear up some time for lifestyle, that's another big category that Todd knows a lot about. So let's just jump right in. So what is the number one thing you would tell an experienced real estate investor about how to talk to private sellers and close more deals? Because we all know that nothing happens until we get a deal. So how do you talk to these motivated sellers? What's the number one thing?
Well, there are basically 5 things that I talk about in the no limit sales system that I talk about, like 5 core skills that you've got to have. But if I had to say the number one most important thing is you have to generate leads, right? And when you have leads, that's going to equal confidence. Because if you are hanging on to 1 or 2 leads and you're praying that 1 or 2 of these things are going to be motivated, right? You're toast, right? You're toast. You're going to be basically just praying that someone is motivated to do business with you and you're going to be chasing them. And if a seller feels like you are chasing them and that you're desperate, forget it. You're done, right? I used to have this dog named Molly when I was a kid, and we got her from the North Shore Animal League in Long Island, New York. And this dog, man, she used to just bolt right out the door every single time, especially when the mailman came around, when they used to actually walk. And I remember we used to chase Molly and Molly used to run the other direction every single time. So we finally realized, well, when Molly ran out the door, if we ran the other way, she would actually chase us, right? And so the way to do that, the secret way to be able to run the other way is, number one, generate leads. You got to start there, right? You've got to have a steady, predictable machine that's going to predict leads, because after that, you're going to have enough people to talk to, right? And if you have enough people to talk to, then you can actually use the skills that I'm going to talk about today to lock these deals up, right? Because if you don't have leads, well, there's no one to talk to. So that is probably the single most important thing. You know, everyone's saying, what's the secret to talking to people? Well, number one, finding the people to talk to, right? So start there, and then we can break into some of these communication techniques, Mitch.
Okay, so you actually have a giveaway for us, and you're going to be giving away one of these scripts. And tell us what you're giving away. And so I'll plant that seed with people, what we're going to be giving away here in a little bit.
Sure. So I've got 2 things. Number one, if you want to learn how to generate leads, right? I got the no limits map. This is the massive action plan. So Mitch is actually going to give a link out here at the end. And this map is actually the blueprint that I used all the way to get my first deal, all the way to scaling up my business. And now we've done over 1,300 deals. Again, that's an approximate number. But I can tell you this, that 99% of those were locked up by people on my team, okay, and not by me personally. Okay. So I'm going to give you that massive action plan. And I'm also going to give you the exact script that we use to talk to motivated sellers in our own business, and the script that I use to train our acquisition specialists and other investors across the country. So Mitch will give you the link to both of those here at the end of the show. So make sure that you hang on here to the end.
Yeah. Very fine giveaways. I really appreciate when someone gives away something really quality for the listeners here, and I know that they're going to benefit from those scripts and that massive action plan. Who's your first hire? Most of us start out as a solo entrepreneur, right? We're wearing every single hat. Who's your first hire?
This really is going to depend on your skills in the business, right? If you are a complete closer and you love meeting with motivated sellers and you know how to lock up deals, my first hire, I would say, would either be a virtual assistant who can handle all of everything except for talking to sellers, right? So I see one of the biggest areas of growth that I see struggling investors need to make is that they don't have a steady and predictable system for marketing. And that part is not because they don't know how to do the marketing, right? But it's because they have to pull a list and they have to upload that list and they have to scrub the list. And then when it's time to do it again, they've got to do it all over again, right? Or, ordering a mailing campaign and, approving the proof and, paying with a credit card, or it could be, handling a duplicate lead in a database, whatever that is. So I think a good virtual assistant is great if you're a good closer. A close second would be someone who can answer the phone for you. If you're generating leads, someone who can answer it and screen that person and hand to you leads who are actually ready to sell. They don't have to be desperate, but they have to be ready to sell. So either one of those two would be my first hire. I would leave the closing up to you when I first got started.
Okay, so that makes perfect sense. I'll even go like before that. And I like to say, don't be doing your own books. Don't be doing your own collections. Don't be doing any of that stuff. Those are the lowest hanging. Those are jobs that you can sub out easy. And then when you're talking about generating the business, now you're talking about people that can actually make calls or find someone who's ready to sell. I agree 100%. If a person's just stuck in the day-to-day grind, how do they start to get themselves free of that and actually form a business that works for them instead of them working for the business?
Well, I'll start telling a story, right? Because I actually came from corporate America and I got out of corporate America. I was actually selling Viagra at the time, erection pills. Yes, the competition, it was really hard and competition was stiff, right? But I got out of that, right? Because I didn't want to work so hard. And I wanted the freedom that the business could provide. And so about 12 months into me quitting my job, I was just about to have my third or fourth child. I think it was my fourth. And I was in bed and I remember looking over and I slept in this particular day because I was just working out. I was up all night and I looked over at my wife and I said, I don't want to go to work today, which ironically, I now had the quote unquote freedom, right, to work for myself and work the hours that I wanted to work. But I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, right? I mean, you name it. I was uploading the campaigns, answering the phone, doing the follow-up, getting the contract, trying to file a contract, calling the escrow company, calling the cash buyers. I mean, you name it, everything and anything. Books? Did you say keeping your own books? I mean,
yeah, right. You don't when you're at that point.
I mean, I was I making money? Was I losing money? I mean, who knew, right? And so, and it's funny because if you ask any investor, like, should you keep books? Like, oh yeah, that's so important. Well, 99% of people aren't doing that because they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off, right? So they're doing what we call the MBA, right? And that's the you're managing by your bank account, right? I'd rather you have the MBA, which is a massive bank account, but most of the time people are just crazy. So for me, I made a commitment just right then and there that I was going to have a business that was a slave to me and not the other way around. So number one, you've got to make that decision. And with that, once you understand that you're making that decision, all these fears are going to creep up about what could happen, right? Hiring people. Well, what if I hire someone and it doesn't pay off? Or what if they quit? Or what if they steal my business? Or how do I find the right person? And, what if they mess up? So all of these fears, what if my overhead is too high, start to creep in, right? But you've got to commit, right? And understand, okay, well, what is the alternative? Right? What is the alternative if I don't take action, Mitch? Well, I can tell you that you will be a slave to your business. And if that's what you want, hey, that's fine. Right. But for me, that's not what I wanted. Right. I wanted to be able to lock up deals all day, every day, without my personal day-to-day involvement.
Can I interject here? Because let me tell you, you may love what you do and you may be really passionate about it. You may like running at that speed and having all that come at you for a time. But let me tell you a fact. You are going to burn out and you're going to fall down. And if you wait until you get to the end of that burnout before you decide you need to do it, there won't be any of you left to get it done. I know that's how I did it. I got to the very end of my rope. I was about to quit everything and just live off my storages. and I couldn't make myself throw away, $1.5 million, $2 million worth of business every year. And I said, I got to try one more time to automate this business. But this time, I'm going to go get some professional help. I'm going to listen. I'm going to let them unwind me and rewind me. And as long as I trust the person, I'm going to do what they say, whether I believe it or not, because otherwise I'm going to throw this whole business in a trash can. And what really happened in my situation was I was so burned out that I didn't care if I bought a house again ever, myself. There was still that allure of, could I get other people to find houses and get it all done without me? But and the year that I quit placing the 100 houses a year demand on myself and didn't care was the year that I got it all fixed, because you actually have to take a step backwards sometimes, right, to fix something so that you can run faster going forward.
Well, that's another great point, Mitch, right? Is I think you have to understand there's a long game with this. And I recently hired someone, and in her interview process, she says, if you want to go fast, go alone, right? If you want to go far, go together. That's a John Maxwell comment, or I think he actually heard it from someplace. And that's true, right? The reason why we don't go and sometimes bring a team is like, well, I can just do it faster myself. I can meet with that seller, faster and get the contract, or I can call the title company, or I can answer this question. And it takes an investment, right? Every time that you work with somebody else, it's a seed that you plant, but sometimes it doesn't sprout right away, right? But for me, I'll tell you, I just went on this long RV trip across the country with my family. And I can tell you that I checked in twice during that time with the team for a very short period of time. And they were locking up houses without me, right? I wasn't talking to sellers. I wasn't locking up contracts. I wasn't talking to the title company. They were just getting it done. And so that first step is the commitment, right? And then getting a vision of what you actually want for the business. The other part is that understanding that it doesn't have to be all at once, right? Is that you could actually have small increment improvements quarter after quarter after quarter, right? And break your business life down into quarters and set goals to gradually pull yourself out of the business, right? So for example, this quarter, set a goal, say, hey, you know what? I want somebody else answering the phone, going through the script, asking people if they want to sell. And that actually is going to free up 40% of my time, which by the way, it will, right? And so that's what I'm committed to this quarter. And you may say next quarter, I'll hire a virtual assistant who will handle all the administrative stuff, all the marketing, all the CRM, all the closing statements, getting everything to the bookkeeper, and handle everything that needs to be done in an administrative standpoint. Well, great. Well, now you got 6 months and you've basically outsourced 70, 80% of your business, right? Well, now you say, okay, well, the third quarter, I'd like to hire an acquisitions person. This is the person who's going to meet with the motivated sellers, lock up the houses, get the contracts and basically drive revenue. Well, great. After 6 months, now you've outsourced 90% of your business. Now you're doing really good. And you can continue to build from there, right? But it's a step-by-step. Go ahead, Mitch.
So that's exactly how I did mine. But the fear was, one is I set up most of my people, the vast majority of everyone involved in my organization buying 100 houses a year, which is not a lot of people, but they get paid upon success. So I don't pay until I'm borrowing money to buy the house, and then I borrow that money too, or when I've sold the house and the money hits the table, I'm paying to my salespeople stuff. So that was the number one thing, is I tried to take on as little dependent payroll people as I could, so that my treadmill was very small. And then I thought I was going to take a cut in pay, because I was going to have to give money to all these people for each their share of what they did for that deal. Turns out I made more money than I ever made, because we could do a little higher volume. But the main reason was because they might not have been as good a closer as I was, but they only had one thing to do, so they were better. They weren't as good as I was, but their numbers were better because that's all they had to do. And the same thing with the next chair and the next chair and the next chair. So when I thought I was going to take a cut in pay, like my exact, really dumb, I know, I'm willing to give up half of this 1.5 million profit a year to just not have to do it. And I'll still keep, half of it, but I won't have to work in the business. That's not what happened. I thought I was going to give up half. I ended up making way more than I ever made before and got everybody paid. That's how efficient the machine became. And you can explain that a lot to people, right, Todd? But it's hard for them to really grasp that doing less, you can actually make more.
Well, let me add to that. I fully agree with that, Mitch. But one of the things I'll tell you is like, number one, you think you're, and when I say you, right, I mean all of us.
Yeah.
If you're a solopreneur, you think you're better than you are, first of all, right? Because I can tell you this, if you're the person handling phone calls and leads, there's no way you're doing this all well, right? I guarantee you that you are leaving leads on the table. You're not following up like you should be, right? You're not sending out the text messages or the emails, and then all the leads that have been matriculating for 30, 60, 90, 120 days. You're telling me you're following up with all those like you should, and then also run the business by yourself? I don't think so.
It's like a contractor that comes up and says, "So what do you do?" He says, "Man, I do it all." I'm thinking to myself, he doesn't do anything good.
He doesn't do anything. Right. So the very fact that you're right, you have the one person concentrating on your database. Ironically, maybe they might miss a deal that you would, but they're going to pick up 3 that you ignored because it wasn't the low hanging fruit, because you didn't want to deal with it anymore.
Well, you couldn't even get to it.
You couldn't even get to it. Couldn't even get to it. Right. And that's the lesson that I learned, is that I always tell when we have a new hire that there's 250 grand right now sitting in the database that you can extract here in the next 60 to 90 days. Right. And every single time they do it, they make 60 calls a day. Motivated or unmotivated sellers, doesn't matter, right? Could be the oldest list in the world. They pull out revenue, right? And by the way, it's close to 100% profit because the marketing has already been paid for, right? And that's the beauty of, bringing people along with you, Mitch.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always said, if you just spent 2 or 3 days walking from door to door to door and just said, "Look, I'm buying houses. Anybody wants to sell one?" You're going to find a deal.
Yep.
It's a commitment. You got to put up the numbers, right?
Yep. It's all about the volume.
I read one of the questions that we were talking about asking, and I purposely didn't ask you because I kind of wanted the surprise of your answer. But it said, how do you get off the treadmill of deal to deal to deal living? Like I did a deal, now I have to do another one. I have to do another one. I have to do another one. This one's done. I have to do another one. How do you get off that treadmill?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first of all, it's a mindset shift. First of all, right? Because when you're not the one doing it all the time, it's not that bad. And I can tell you that cashing checks, I always encourage people to do less deals and bigger deals, right? But when you're cashing checks of $30, $40, $50,000 on a regular basis, and you're not the one grinding, right? You have a team where that work is distributed among, right? Number one, it doesn't get old near as fast. Okay. It never gets old. It never gets old, right? So it only gets old when you're the one always on the treadmill doing everything on the business, right? If you're just the one locking up houses and you have a team around you, right? It's less of a burden. But hey, first of all, I've heard Joel Osteen say, hey, without the blessing, you can't have the blessing without the burden. And so this business is a huge blessing, right? In that the deal, you are generating quick cash for the short game. Now, that being said, you want to be expanding the company and building that. You're also building your reputation in town as someone who gets deals done. So you are building roots in where you live and where you do business, right? But the other part about that is that if you're generating cash, I have my own personal investment philosophy where it is tied 10% of your income, spend 50% of your income and invest the other 40%. So if you are investing your 40%, whether it be in index funds, stocks, S&P 500, or you want to keep rental properties, or you want to buy mobile home parks, right? Which are a great long-term investment, right? Those are going to grow in your sleep. And I highly suggest that you get your money working for you. I always tell everybody on my team, my acquisition specialist, I want them to be entrepreneurial. There's only 3 ways to make money. Only 3 ways to make more money. Number one, you can increase your personal productivity, right? You could be a better closer. You could be more efficient with your time. You can, say no to time sucks. Number 2 is that you can work with other people. You can delegate, right? And that's another way to get off the treadmill. And the third way is obviously to invest your money so that your money is in working while you sleep, right? And so that's really, 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 really important.
let me say this. So I got out of the grind and wasn't making, didn't have to make those phone calls anymore. I got 4 acquisition managers. Okay. And then they've been with me about a year or two, and I can see the grind of making those calls wear on them. So just recently, like 30 days ago, we had a meeting, and I'm demanding that they all hire a VA to start making calls for them. We got a guy to train them for us specifically, one of the, and I'm making my acquisition because I don't want to lose my acquisition managers. They're good, but I can see the grind wearing them down. They're getting tired of it. And so what we're doing is they all have an office, right? And we're putting up a screen in their office right behind their desk that their VA is on. They check in at 8 a.m. and they leave at whatever in the afternoon. And whenever the VA has someone that's kind of lukewarm or that's ready to talk, they get them prepped, and then they just push a button and say, hey, Patrick, you want to talk to this guy? He's meeting all the criteria. He's hot and he's on the line right now. And then they talk to him right then. My idea of that was a step further. Like, I wanted to keep myself getting burned out. But then when I saw my acquisition managers getting fried, I didn't want to lose them either. So I'm trying to help them. They're not nearly as quick to jump at acquiring a little overhead. So I had to sit down and have a long talk with them, and say, look, you guys all got to try this. You've got to give it 3 or 4 months. And if it works, your life is going to be substantially better. And you guys are still going to be here for another 5 years.
Yeah. So that's, it's funny. I brought that up to some of our acquisition specialists, and, ironically, we said, hey, that, we're going to take some administrative fees off the top of the commission, but this person here is going to alleviate 70 to 80% of your work. Is that a good trade? Right.
They all say no at first.
They said, well, so the way that I framed it was, I'll tell you what, if you don't want this after 90 days, right, we'll go back to the old way. So the one thing I always tell people too is, whether you're going to hire someone, number one, it doesn't have to be permanent. Whether you're trying to convince the people who work with you to hire someone, I know we're getting really high level. It doesn't have to be permanent. You can try it. And, the other part about this is, even if you decide to hire someone and lay out some money for something, it's not like you're stuck for a year's salary up front, right? You're going to know within 1, 2, 3 months if someone's going to work or not, and it's going to be a benefit to you, right? So your only outlay is that, maybe a month to 3 months max.
If they don't get one deal.
If they don't get one deal.
If they just completely fail. If they get one deal, then it's offset again, right?
Yeah. So Mitch, the people who listen to your podcast, just curious, have the majority never done a deal and want to do their first deal? Have they, and if you're listening to this, I'd love to hear your in the comments on Mitch's website. Have you done a few deals and want to do more? Tell me a little bit about the people who listen.
I think most of the people are about 60 to 65% of the people are intrigued or new or less than 10 deals. Maybe a little bit more than that, but I also have some pretty staunch go-getters that listen regularly, because I have great guests like you. We really talk about real content. We're not just here to sell a course for at least this hour. I think you're kind of like me. I think that you figure, when that person that I really want to coach is ready, they know if I'm the right guy, and they know how to get a hold of me. I don't have to beat them up with the closing sales, run to the back of the room crap. I really don't. And so I just figure, if we do a good enough job on these series and deliver some real content, show that we know what we're talking about, that everything else just kind of comes. And it's kind of a Christian belief. I just give first. I give a lot first. I just give all the time. And I know you're that kind of guy too, right?
Well, I think the biggest thing is in terms of, coaching and coaching services. I'm in agreement with you. Most of someone has to really, really want to do business with me, right, before I'd even consider taking them on in any kind of one-on-one capacity, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is I don't chase anyone for anything. I've got 4 kids and a business. And so people who come to me for coaching are really, really, really hungry for it.
And you're the right guy for them. They've heard you, or they've listened to you enough. They feel some kind of relationship. And then I know you're exactly like, we do the same thing. We talk to them and we try to figure out, given the amount of money they're going to stroke a check for, do we feel like we're going to be able to help them enough to get it back. And if the answer is no, then I don't, we'll do something else, go get on a call or go get my course or do something else. But if it's yes, then I'm in. I just had that experience this morning. I told a guy, I'm throwing my hat in. I'm all the way in. You've got 100 houses. I know I can help you. I know that what you're going to pay me, I can make it look like chump change in about 30 days, maybe less.
That's awesome, Mitch. That's awesome.
But you do the same thing. I specialize in seller financing houses across the nation. Not a lot of people do that. You specialize in wholesaling. You specialize in systems and creating freedom in the workplace for the owner. You specialize in generating leads and
conversion,
closing motivated
conversion.
Sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk about that giveaway that you have. I want everyone to go to 1000houses.com/Toback, TOBACK. Okay. That's short for Todd Toback. And go there. That'll take you to the show notes. Over there, you're going to be able to get that massive action plan to start figuring out how to generate leads. And you're also going to get a free script of how to talk to motivated sellers. Did I get that right?
You got it right. Okay.
So again, 1000houses.com/Toback, TOBACK. And if you had it to do all over again from the very beginning, what would you do different?
Number one, I'd bring more people along with me for the ride in the initial, stages, right? I would have understood that you can't do it alone, right? I would have bought more commercial real estate and held it for sure, right? Understanding it's the short game and the long game. You got to work both, right? So if you're always focusing on the long game, well, you're not going to be able to live like you want to live right now, right? If you're always focusing on the short game, you know what? You are going to be on a treadmill, even if you're building a team. So you want to, number one, structure your business for the short game so it generates cash flow for you, right? But you also want to set up for the long game where you're building a team. And then you also want to do that with your personal finances, right? So, one of the things that I've always that I saw my dad generate several multi-million-dollar businesses and lose it all at least 3 times growing up. So wow. For me, investing kind of always investing for the future always came a little natural to me, because I'm like, hey, I don't want to be on that treadmill, right? Where I'm constantly starting over. And so I'll go to a lot of masterminds and see that, there's a lot of people who make a lot of money, but have very little to show for it. And so make sure that you are investing a large portion of your net income into index funds, S&P 500, or houses that you want to keep, or commercial real estate, or whatever else that you think is a good investment, so that it grows in your sleep. And that's going to be my message for everybody. And also make a hell of a lot of money. I mean,
it's the same thing though. It's just all about balance. It's about diversification. You can't, if you're just flipping all the time, you're going to be flipping the rest of your life. You have to invest in something that, if you build that portfolio big enough, you work yourself out of a job that it'll take care of yourself. For me, it's mini storages, boat storages, semi-truck parking. It's storage facilities.
Yeah.
And I woke up one day, and if I didn't want to ever do any of this again, I don't have to, which makes this all the more fun. I'm talking to Todd Toback because I like and respect him, and I really want to have a show with him. I want to be on this show and talk to you because of all the things I know about you and how successful you are, and mostly the kind of person you are outside the workplace. I really admire that. I get a lot.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one thing I tell people when they're hiring a mentor. I says, make sure they're the kind of person you want to be on and off the field, because at some point it crosses over, so make sure that they're the kind of person you want to be.
So let me throw this out at you. One of the things I would tell you in terms of people like, how do I find someone? Man, there's a book you got to read. It's by John Maxwell. It's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And one of the things they talk about is the law of the lid, right? The law of the lid. And basically, you are not going to attract anybody who's at a lower level of leadership than you. Okay. And leadership goes back to character, right? Is that who Who do people believe that you are, what you can teach them, what you're going to give to them, how much you're going to root for them, how much you're going to get them where they're going to go, right? Because I mean, think about it. If someone's coming to work with you, they're thinking, hey, what's in it for me? Right. And if you're a leader, you should be thinking, hey, what's in it for them? Right. How can I give value to this person so that they follow me? And so if you're having a hard time attracting people, well, I think it's time to take a look at your leadership, right? And who you are and your character. Because people will smell that, right? If people feel like, hey, this person wants to help me and they want to teach me and they want to pour into me and they really want to see good things for me and my family, guess what? They're going to come work with you. They're going to come work alongside you. They're going to go to battle for you and they will bleed for you, right? If they feel like you will do the same for them. And so that's been one of the things that I've learned is when people sense that, man, they'll do a lot. They will do a lot. And so working on yourself is probably one of the best investments that you can make so that you can pour into others.
Absolutely. I also learned that I was a piss poor judge of who would be good at the position I was hiring for. And I started, number one, just scalping the real pros from other people. They already knew they were good. They've already proven themselves.
Yep.
Second, if I was doing a new hire, I would do the personality test. And I used to think, the personality test would point to someone that I didn't believe in at all, but I was so bad at it. Mine were working out so horribly that I went ahead and took a chance on some of the personality tests, and those people have still been with me for 5 years now. I never would have thought they would have been able to fill the position, but the personality tests seem to be pretty accurate for me.
Man, it's interesting. We'll have a little disagreement on the show and some tension, which I always think is good, right? I personally think, because I used to be a big believer in the personality test. You know what, Mitch? Screw those things. Okay.
Really?
The biggest thing is, a personality test tells me someone's personality, right? People are the opposite of stocks. They say that past performance is not predictive of future results. With people, that's always the case. Past performance is always a predictor of future results. So the reason why I think that you've had success with scalping others is because past results is a predictor of future success. I don't care what the personality test. I'm looking for someone who has won consistently in their life, time after time after time after time. Doesn't have to necessarily be in sales, but I'm looking for someone who has committed themselves. My best acquisition specialist of all time was a total introvert, kind of systems kind of guy. And he would not show up on any kind of personality test as a closer for this. And he'd show up and he'd make his calls and he would follow the script. And, he wasn't able to, do the flashy things that other, guys do, like break through massive barriers. But man, he was consistent. And he was with me for 5.5 years. We made millions of dollars together. He eventually went out on his own to do his own thing because I taught him everything I knew. But with the relationship strong, we still to this day do business together and make a ton of money still together. And if I would listen to the personality test on him, he was my first hire, right? So, I would challenge you on that. Now, granted, some of the personality tests will point out some people who could be naturally good at sales. And I get that, right? If you'd like take the DISC test, right? Someone who's very high in that DI, right? They're really dominant. They have that real extroverted personality. They're going to come in and they maybe kill it, but it says nothing about longevity or commitment or loyalty or being able to operate within your system. And so, how long someone's going to be with you is also going to play a factor into that.
Yeah, important. So as usual, not one way to do anything in this business. It's whatever you commit to and hammer through. One of the biggest questions I'm getting right now, if you have time, how do people best stretch their marketing budget and what's working these days?
Oh, good question.
I don't even know that it kind of blankets the whole country. I don't know. Probably different parts of the country different things might be working. I don't know. What do you say? Well,
first of all, there's misconception of when you say, well, what's working and what's hot and what's all that, right? Well, I can tell you that's a bunch of BS in that you can't listen from one person to the other, because one person's going to work their database differently than the other. So one person says, oh, I tried direct mail and it didn't work. Okay, well, did you, send out any kind of volume, first of all, right? Number two is, did you follow up with every single lead for at least 3 or 4 months, right? And then 5, how did you negotiate when you went out there, right? I mean, all of those things, you do the same mailing, same postcard, and the calls come in, and one guy could pull out 70 grand. The other guy will pull out nothing. And if you spend 10 grand, one guy's going to say, oh my gosh, I 7X my investment. The other guy says it doesn't work. Right. So you have to be very, very cognizant of that. If you look at our marketing right now, we do it all, right? We do direct mail, we do SMS texting, we do ringless voicemail in our markets where it's legal. We are heavy in social media. We're heavy on local SEO and Google reviews. And we also work with other wholesalers. My recommendation, if you're listening to this, is to pick one, just one, and focus 100% on that marketing channel, and do not water it down, and commit to it for at least 90 days, right? I could tell you without a doubt that if you cold call for 90 days every day for an hour, and you follow up and you use a script that Mitch is going to give you, you're going to lock up a deal. Right?
I say the same thing, Todd. I say everything works if you work it, but you gotta work it. You gotta work it to death.
Yeah. If you do text messaging, it will work. If you do mailers, it will work. But the problem here is, in the land of podcasts, you're constantly switching strategies, right? You're going, oh, I'm local. Oh, now I'm virtual. Now I'm nationwide. Now I'm doing texting. Now I'm doing this. It's too much, right? Focus on one thing, on one market, and make it happen. The funny thing is, Mitch, is when, for me, I started out in creative real estate, right? Doing lease options and owner financing and sub 2. And when it was just me, I could do those. But when I started hiring people, Mitch, I tried to teach people, owner financing and lease options and wholesaling, and none of it was working for them, right? They too much. No way, no how. I said, you guys, you do one thing. You guys wholesale, get for cash offers, and that's it. And we're successful there, right? I will do, creative stuff on my own on some bigger deals, right? But I do not recommend, when you're training someone, be really, 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 really good on one thing, especially when you've got a team.
I couldn't agree more. Like, yeah, sometimes red ass entrepreneurs who are very good ADD multitaskers can keep 8 balls in the air. They think everybody's like that.
Yeah,
it's not true.
Right. So for someone like you doing owner financing, right, you're probably able to go from a cash offer, and you could tell, hey, this person's not going to take this. He's not going for it. And you could switch over to some kind of owner financing deal probably pretty seamlessly. But when you've got a sales rep working for you, all of a sudden, the way their mindset is like, oh my gosh, if I give a seller more, this is going to sound way more appealing. So now I'm going to just go high on price on every single deal. You have to realize people process in different ways. Right. So that's a great point.
So last question, what's the secret to building real wealth? I mean, first of all, what is real wealth to you? And then what's the secret? What do you think the secret is to building that?
The answer I'm going to give is probably not that popular, but it's 100% the truth. And that is, the easy part is, number one, start making a crap ton of money, right? So you want to produce. And I can tell you that the more you produce, right, the more that you can invest. So I've got the 10, 50, 40 rule. So you tithe 10%, you live on 50%, and you invest 40%. Now, some people say, I don't want to give up Starbucks, or I don't want to have give up a fancy car. Fine. That's cool. Enjoy all those things. Just make more money, right? Just make more money. And then make sure that you're investing 40% of your income into cash flowing or appreciating assets, and you will get rich beyond your wildest dreams. Okay. Now, the definition of wealth, right, is when your money is growing while you sleep, and you could stop working whenever you want. Right. I mean, that's true wealth to me. You have no obligations, and you can do whatever the heck you want. Right. For me, I go on, 6, 7, 8 weeks of vacation every single year. with my family. And that's pretty much all I do love to work. But I take those time and I shut off my phone and I invest in, my family in those vacations. Right. And so, I enjoy doing that. So, being able to do what you want and then not having to work. I mean, that's the true freedom. That's the true wealth. And then, eventually, I mean, when you talk about wealth, you're going to hit that point, but if you're continually reinvesting, you will not believe how fast your money will grow. Right. Once you're doing what I'm telling you to do, that 10, 50, 40 rule.
I got to a point in my life, because exactly what you said was true. I mean, there was more than I needed, more than enough. And I needed something else besides more money. I needed an emotional reward, not as much as, more than a financial reward anymore, which is why I like teaching. Dave Ramsey rings the bell when people get debt free. They do the primal scream. We ring the bell at my office when people fire their boss, when they leave their job. That's what I get a kick out of helping people do is fire their boss. And I don't know why. But I've been doing it for a long time now. I never get tired of it. And but I do feel like when I help that one person quit the job, I'm helping a whole bunch of people around that guy, his kids, his spouse, his parents. He's able to give some quality time to all these people. He's leading a great example for his children and for his spouse. So I just think it has a ripple effect. And all I want to do every month is help people try to quit their job, even at the most modest level. And the reason why it's important is that, you make $3,500 at your job. And so we help you figure out how to make $3,500 so you don't have to have a job. The reason why that's important is it frees up 2,600 hours that now you get to figure out who you really are and what you really want to do and how to get really good at it and become the person you're supposed to be. And that's why I think it's so important that the first step be just figure out how to replace the money that you're going to that job for. Figure that out first. If you want to be wealthy, we'll get to that next, but just get free. Get that 2,600 hours back.
And I could tell you, if you do what I tell you to do right here on this, especially if you download the map, that's really easy to do, right? I mean, really, really, really easy to do. I mean, I don't know how much you're making at your job. If you're listening to this, if you're making $3,500 a month, geez, you're going to snap your fingers and you're going to be able to do that, right? You could sneeze. If you're making $10,000 or $20,000, maybe you sneeze a couple of times and you can absolutely do that with 90 days of focused work. Man, you could say goodbye to that. So it's totally attainable. That sounds like a really, really worthy goal. And, one of the things that's really exciting is the person that you could become by the time that you quit that job and transform I remember when I left my job, I was actually making really good money when I left. My boss we had a great relationship. His name was Sean at the time. And he looked at me and like, well, how did you do that? Like, how can I do this? How can I learn? And that was really, really satisfying, right? I didn't have some big thing where I threw, broke a window or threw a water cooler. It was a really pleasant and, sad conversation when I told him I was leaving, but it was cool to see that he was envious that I was able to quit. And so that was really, really, really fulfilling.
All right, you guys, I want you to go to 1000houses.com/Toback, Toback, and get you that massive action map to help you start generating leads right now. And also get the script so that you know how to talk to these motivated sellers when you get a hold of them, what to say, what you're looking for. This is the key. The rubber meets the road by finding a deal. You have to find a deal. That's where everything starts. So, I wouldn't be worrying about how to syndicate apartments if you haven't figured out how to find a deal yet and capitalize on the smallest, easiest little single family home. Master that first. Anything you want to say to the listeners before we wrap it up, Todd?
No, that's it. I mean, this business is simple, right? Go generate some leads today, right? Get on the phone and convert, use a script, make it happen, either keep that property or wholesale it, make a ton of money. And do it over and over and over again. The recipe is simple. So go to Mitch's website. You can download the script and the map and just make it happen. Go grab it.
All right, this is Mitch Stephen with 1000houses.com. I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by to get you some Todd Toback. I want to thank you, Todd, for coming on. I also want to thank my sponsor, livecom.com, livecom.com. There's a reason why my houses average 4 days on the market with no signs. My advertising budget to sell my properties is virtually zero. And I can show you how to do it. Just go over to livecom.com, livecom.com. Watch the little videos on the homepage and learn how to generate leads using mass texting and much, much more. And it's not just for real estate, it's for any business. So thank you, Livecom, for being the sponsor of this episode. Todd, we'll see you down the road. Best of luck to you. Hope you have a great 2022 this coming year. And I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show.
Thanks, Mitch.